Millions of players around the world click the install button. In 1 second, thousands of servers are launched. Thousands of games are loaded simultaneously. Chats explode with messages. Friends share news. Communities boil with emotions. The name Steam is known to everyone, from a schoolboy who first discovered Counter-Strike to an adult who launches Portal or Skyrim after work. It is the largest platform in the world, a gaming home for hundreds of millions of people. But you know what's most impressive? It all started in a completely different way. Not with applause, not with success, not with trust. Because if Steam seems like a symbol of victory today, in the beginning it was a symbol of chaos. It was hated, mocked, cursed. And few people back then believed that this idea would even survive. And that's why this story will be special. It's not just about business or games. It's about the human spirit. About how failures can become the foundation for victory. About how one company with a small office and an audacious dream managed to change an entire industry. I want you to hear this story to the end. Because it's not just the story of Steam. It's the story of you and me. About dreams that seem impossible. About defeats that teach more than victories. And about the path that proves true success is born where there is greater risk and the greatest doubt. It all started almost imperceptibly. Not from large halls, not from loud announcements, but from a quiet room that looked more like a basement than an office. Old tables, a bunch of wires, the smell of cheap coffee that saved me from sleepless nights. On the shelves were boxes of old discs, and in the corner was the roar of a computer that was constantly overheating. Gabe Newell and his team were still living in the memories of Half-Life, the game that had changed the way we think about what a shooter could be. They were programmers, dreamers, people who believed the industry had yet to say its final word. But a new vision was already brewing in their minds, not just for the game, but for the entire industry. Because back then, in the early 2000s, the gaming world was completely different. Games were sold on discs, and each release was a lottery. Patches had to be searched for manually, piracy was rampant, and publishers controlled everything. Valve felt that this system was reaching its end. And what the heck? But no one saw the point. It's impossible, said the skeptics. The players won't accept it, the publishers dismissed. And yet, in the cramped office, other words were heard. What if we build something bigger? Not just a store, but a place where games live, where they're constantly updated, where the only button. It was an idea that sounded too bold. But it's ideas like these that start great stories. I remember that time as if it were yesterday. We still lived in a world of discs, thick boxes with bright covers that warmed the heart. But inside, behind this shine, there was rot. You buy a game, take it home, and it doesn't start. You angrily change the disc, look for patches on forums, feel disappointment instead of joy. And there was another pain. Piracy. When we put in years of work, heart, sleepless nights, and the next day we see our work posted on a torrent for free. It was like being robbed. Like your child, whom you raised and protected, is now lying on the street, and no one appreciates its true value. We understood, the industry will not last that long. We watched as publishers collapsed one after another, as major studios closed. And deep inside, a fear arose. Maybe we too will be next? And then an idea was born, almost like a desperate cry. What if we hack the system? What if we make it so that the player gets the game not on a disc, not on a pirated site, but directly from our server? What if we give him a world where updates arrive automatically, where everything is always available with one click? It sounded crazy, even dangerous, because we understood, if it doesn't work, we're finished. We'll lose everything. But it was worse to sit back and watch an entire industry die. And we took a risk. We launched Steam. We thought it would be the beginning of a new life. But instead, we were hit by a wave of hatred we had never felt before. We expected applause. We dreamed that gamers would understand. We are doing this for them. That Steam would become a lifeline in a sea of piracy and chaos. But it turned out to be completely different. 2003, Steam launches. And instead of applause, there are screams. Hundreds of forums erupted in anger. This is a disaster, wrote players. You ruin Half-Life. I don't want to install this crap. Valve has betrayed us. Services were slow, crashing at every turn. People spent hours trying to launch their favorite games, only to be met with errors and freezes instead of joy. For them, we became a symbol of the problem, not the solution. I remember those nights, when we sat in front of the monitors and saw thousands of hate messages. It was like being beaten by the one you were trying to protect. Like the friend you sacrificed everything for was looking you in the eye and saying, "I hate you." It was a moment when I wanted to give up. After all, we had risked everything. We had invested our souls. We had abandoned the old rules to create something new. And now we were strangers in our own home. Part of the team was losing faith. Someone said, maybe we made a mistake? Maybe we should close this and go back to what we knew how to do, make games? But deep down, another thought was brewing. If we gave up now, then all this pain would be for nothing. We understood we must endure, even if everyone is against us, even if the players hate us. Because real change always starts with hatred. People are afraid of the new, and our task is to prove that it is worth it. It was the darkest moment, but it was the point from which the revival began. After months of hatred and criticism, while the forums were still burning with anger, we sat together in a cramped office. Old computers hummed softly, and the smell of unbrewed coffee lingered on the tables. We looked at each other and understood. You can give up, but you can also fight. We started with small steps. We fixed the most serious bugs, made loading faster, made patches easier. We released the first third-party games. Something that might have seemed like a small thing became a breath of fresh air for the players. And the first signs of success appeared instantly. Letters from players. Thank you for listening. A few bloggers started writing positive reviews. It wasn't the applause of millions, but it was the first real signals that we were on the right track. But the world doesn't get easier, even when you think you've got your head up high. The next step was a risk. We decided to open the platform to small developers. What could go wrong? Everything. Since then, every new project, every new player could break the system. But we believe that it's better to take risks than to stay small. These were the moments when you feel the full weight of responsibility. Every decision is like a leap into the darkness. And yet, step by step, day by day, we felt the darkness begin to recede. Steam slowly but surely took on a life of its own. And while there were more blows to come, we knew one thing. If we stopped now, this small victory would never grow into something big. We've already tasted victory. Steam started working. The first third-party games were making money. Players were slowly returning. But as soon as you raise your head, someone appears who wants to break you. Publishers. The big companies that used to be our partners turned into predators. EA, Ubisoft, Activision. They saw us as a threat to their empires and were not going to hold back. Contracts were broken without explanation. Negotiations ended in shouting matches. And one evening I will remember for a long time, when a senior manager at EA dismissed us with the words, "Do you think you changed the rules of the game? We will break you." This wasn't just competition. This was war. Our small office, our cramped rooms with cheap computers, which had seemed like a dream home just a day earlier, had now become a battlefield. We felt small, defenseless. Sometimes it felt like someone wanted us to just disappear, and there was nothing we could do about it. Players were also confused. The forums were exploding again. Why are big companies afraid of Steam? Why is everything so slow? You betrayed us. We were taking a step forward. Circumstances had broken us twice before. Servers were crashing, money was on the line, and it seemed like the dream could break at any moment. Those nights we sat in front of the monitors like convicts. Our hearts were pounding like a marathon runner. Every message, every comment was like a blow. It was scary. It hurt. But amidst all this chaos, a realization flashed through our minds. If we gave up now, no one would ever remember our work again. And then someone said a phrase that I still remember. If they want to break us, we'll break their rules first. That was the first spark of a new plan that would turn Steam upside down forever. We paused, took a deep breath, and decided, no more fear. Now everything was going to the max, either victory or disaster. We were on the edge of the abyss. All the big publishers were screaming that we were wrong. The players still didn't believe it. The servers were crashing. Every day was like a game of survival. And then we made a decision that seemed absurd to anyone outside, to make Steam open, to give a chance not only to the big studios, but to anyone who had an idea, anyone who could make a game. We knew it was dangerous. We knew that every failed game, every broken server, every ungrateful community could bury us. But inside us, there was a feeling, if we don't take risks, we will never become what we can be. It was a leap into the dark. We felt a heartbeat that was tearing our chest apart. Every update, every new game was a challenge, a cry. We are here and we will not give up. No one believed. Even the team doubted. There were nights when we sat together like condemned men, staring at the screen, not knowing if everything would explode tomorrow. We risk everything, someone would say, and I felt that these were not just words, but a hoarse foreboding of struggle. And then a miracle happened. The first small studios started to get a chance. Their games worked, players slowly came back, and small wins piled up. It was a turning point. We were building something from scratch that could become global. Steam was becoming an ecosystem, a world where everyone could find their place, where every risk could become a breakthrough. And it all started with one radical, bold idea that rang through the darkness. Taking risks is not a choice, it's the only way. It happened one cold winter. We launched the first major Steam sale, something no one had ever dared to do before. Servers were crashing. We had our fingers on our keyboards, our hearts pounding like drums in a battle march. And then a miracle happened. A wave of players covered the platform like a storm. Every purchase, every download felt like a small victory. The forum exploded with positivity. Finally, something works. This is incredible. And we stood there in the office, with sweaty palms and trembling knees, and felt like our world had changed forever. But the triumph did not come without sacrifices. Servers crashed. We felt the fear that everything would collapse in 1 second. There were moments when it seemed that all the work had been in vain. Each success was supported by hours of fear, nerves, and sleeplessness. And at the same time, it was a lesson. Great breakthroughs always come after the greatest risk. Steam started to grow rapidly. Small studios got a chance, gamers believed, and the industry realized. Now everything is changing. What previously seemed impossible has become a reality. We went from hatred to applause, from despair to triumph. And then there was a feeling that cannot be expressed in words. You see that everything you went through, all the falls and betrayals, all the risks, were not in vain. Steam became a living organism that continues to grow and change the world. Everyone thought that Steam had risen above the chaos and was now stable. We believed so too. But reality was cruel. A crisis appeared on the horizon that no one had foreseen. The year was 2012. New competitors, Epic, GOG, other platforms, began to rapidly undermine the monopoly. Games were being released everywhere. Piracy had not disappeared anywhere, and players demanded more, faster, cheaper. At one point, we realized Steam was no longer just a store. It had become an arena where every decision could cost millions, where one bad move could bury a reputation. Servers were crashing, accounts were being hacked, and hundreds of studios were threatening to move to competitors. It was a moment when fear became physical. We sat in the office, staring at the screens, seeing user numbers plummeting, messages from outraged players, and anger from studios. Nothing resembled the old basement nights. Now this was a real storm that threatened to destroy everything. And that's when it became clear we needed to change radically. The old methods no longer worked. We needed to create a new philosophy. Open updates, VR integration, early access games, a rating and review system, support for indie studios, understanding the community that we had barely managed to win over. This crisis changed us forever. We could no longer be just a store. Steam had to become an ecosystem that would be impossible to break. Every sleepless night, every mistake, and every scandal was now the foundation for a new phase. And on that night, amidst the anxiety and chaos, We made one decision that would change Steam and the industry forever: to build a platform that wasn't afraid of change, and that would survive even when the world was against it. We woke up from the crisis feeling like we had weathered a storm that could have destroyed us. Our hearts were pounding, our hands were shaking, but something inside had changed. We were no longer the naive dreamers from the basement. We had become a team that knew that true success comes after falling. The first step was to open Steam to all developers, big and small, and give them freedom. New tools, early access, VR integration, a rating and review system. All of these things made the platform alive. We turned the problem of competition and chaos into an opportunity. Players slowly returned, sometimes with doubt, sometimes with hatred, but now they saw that we were listening. Games began to grow on the platform like flowers after a long winter. Indie studios were given a chance that had never existed before, and the world of Steam began to blossom. But most importantly, we learned a lesson. Success is not just about numbers and sales. It's about trust, reputation, and the courage to take a step into the unknown. Every crisis, every mistake, every setback, all of this became the foundation for new growth. Steam was no longer just a store. It was an ecosystem that couldn't be destroyed, a place where gamers and developers lived together, where every risk could turn into a big breakthrough. And we knew that more challenges lay ahead, but now we were ready to face them with our heads held high.